Okay. Thank you all very much. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Our acknowledgments. This takes a village. This project does, and so there are many folks involved that I definitely want to thank. I have no conflicts of interest. All right, so the UK Harm Reduction Hub, UK being the University of Kentucky, not the United Kingdom, but it's a transdisciplinary team of academic and community-based scientists and harm reductionists that are trying to provide early insights into Kentucky's street drug supply through the analysis of used residue from syringes, or residue from used syringes. Integral to the process are these two-way feedback loops. And so this schematic is kind of how we view the hub. So at the center of it is this residue checking that is based at the University of Kentucky. But you see these circles that are kind of all around, and those are really critical partners. We've got community partners, we've got clinicians, and then also we have like preclinical and clinical scientists. And you'll also see kind of these two-way arrows that connect the hub to each of those partners. And so that's these feedback loops that are really important. So we're getting information about what we're finding in the used residue. We're getting that to our partners, but we really need to hear back from them as well. What's useful? How is the information used? What are they hearing from the street? And so forth. We, as I mentioned several times, we exist within a university setting. And so because of that, it's really critical that we focus on this as a service first and foremost, rather than a research project or anything like that. Research may stem from this, it may generate ideas, but at its core, this is a service to the community. And then the circle that kind of connects all of the smaller circles together is our steering committee, which I will go into detail in a bit. So what do? We kind of lovingly say that it's trash to treasure. If you have heard of the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure, we are taking used syringes, trash, things that are being thrown away, and we're bringing them to campus and analyzing the residue, finding out what's in it, and giving information back to the community. We do this through partnerships with community organizations, harm reduction organizations, and we're leveraging existing equipment on campus. So as you can imagine, a campus has a lot of resources that are oftentimes not being used. And so we've been able to leverage that in order to do this work. And then we work with our partners to develop communication strategies. So you get information, you find out what substances are in these syringes, but if that's not actionable, if it's not something that the community finds useful, then the results aren't useful either. So it's really important that we do this really in alignment with community. What can we learn from residue? Residue checking has been around for a very long time, and there are pros and cons. So on the one hand, we can identify new substances in the local supply. We can kind of monitor like changes in what we're finding more often, kind of look at trends in the local supply over time. Limitations, the syringes, as we've heard many times, most people do not have enough syringes to use for each injection. So they're often reused. Maybe they're shared with other people. So we're not able to identify, we're not able to link results to a certain supply, right? And our current method doesn't tell us how much of a drug is present, just whether a substance is present or not. And I do want to say, in an ideal world, aside from a regulated supply, it would be point-of-care drug checking and drug test strips that are done by the harm reduction organizations themselves. This is not the case in Kentucky. We are a state, you can see we're the one in red. We are very red, and things are heavily regulated. Harm reduction is heavily regulated in Kentucky. So for example, for syringe service programs, they can only exist through the local health department. And if an elected official decides one day that they no longer want the syringe service program to exist, it won't exist tomorrow. So it can be a really tenuous relationship. We're fortunate to have over 60 syringe service programs in Kentucky, but they really want to fly under the radar and not do too much to draw attention to themselves so that they can continue the life-saving work that they're doing. So what I'm describing here in our UK harm reduction hub is not the best scenario, but it's an improvisation that we're doing to meet a community need. So a little bit of history. We work closely with a number of local harm reduction agencies, and one was considering purchasing an FTIR for on-site drug checking. So that's just another machine where someone can bring in their drugs and find out what's in their drugs. They asked us to survey other harm reduction agencies in that area to gauge interest and whether they would be interested in referring their clients to this program. So we did that, and the majority expressed a willingness to refer their clients, but fear of law enforcement was a real thing. They didn't want to send their clients somewhere to where they were then going to get picked up, for possession or trafficking or something like that. But they did like syringe residue checking as an alternative option or to supplement kind of what the local harm reduction agency was doing. So from that, I kind of describe how we began as a series of happy accidents. So that first picture of the graph, that's kind of representing this pilot study where we were hearing from the community that they really wanted some form of drug checking. That point of care was still a little, made people nervous, but they were really supportive of residue checking. And so, we, with our community partners, we're kind of mulling this over and thinking, what can we do? How can we do this? And so one day I went to happy hour, as one does, and our server was actually a woman who was getting her master's in forensic toxicology, and she was talking about needing internships, and we just started talking, and just kind of, this was in the background, this pilot study, and just thinking, wouldn't it be great if we could use some of the university equipment that I'm sure is laying around to test the residue? And she was like, I have a professor who I think would be totally on board with that. And so we exchanged information and they connected us. And so it was like we had the community saying they wanted this. Now we have a connection with a mass spec. And all we needed was some syringes, and our community partners said, I'll have a box to you tomorrow. So that's kind of how we started. And then we soft launched in 2024, summer of 2024. We began with 2 sites, and so we would go pick up their Sharps containers, bring them back to campus. We wanted to make it as low threshold, low access for the organizations as possible. They're doing 1,000,001 things, and the last thing they need to do is also try to get all of these syringes together and things like that to give them to us. So we just go pick them up, bring them back to campus, and prep the samples there. It was a lot of stop and go. So we were working with interns. They're there for a couple weeks, then they're gone, then we don't have interns, and then we get another one. And so there was a lot of kind of stops and starts there. Our machine broke down. We were doing this on like a shoestring / volunteer budget, but we were still able to analyze almost 500 syringes. And we detected xylazine in the local supply, which xylazine was in the United States already, but in Kentucky, we didn't think, it was unclear whether it was there because it hadn't shown up in toxicology yet. And so we were able to get that information back to the community, and the community then was able to use that data as support for purchasing like xylazine test strips and things like that. And we learned a lot of lessons. So 2025 has really been a time of scale up. So we received funding to purchase a mass spec for our project solely. So that was a big issue too. It was breaking down. We had to share it with the teaching lab, which was amazing for the time. But there's been more and more interest from the community in wanting to participate in our program, and we haven't had the capacity to do that. So now with this funding, we're able to purchase a mass spec that will be used for this project full-time for at least a year. We formally convened the steering committee, which we were getting feedback from our community partners. We had community partners that were really integral in standing this up. But we wanted to have a body that was a governing body, especially because we're in a university. And so we wanted to really shrink that distance as much as possible between what's going on, boots on the ground, and the academy. So we were able to formally convene them. It includes representatives from a number of different sectors, harm reduction agencies, people with living and lived experience, people who are part of drug user unions. We also have people from the state. And part of our charter is that at least 51% of the members on the steering committee are people with living or lived experience. We have about 15 members, and I think we're at about 70 to 80% of people with living or lived experience on that committee. We meet monthly over Zoom, and they really make sure that our activities remain rooted in community values and need. And then, really quickly, we did a pilot study with a local recovery community center, Voices of Hope, because again, the information that goes back out into the community, the communication is critical. Like, if you just give results with no information about them, then what use is it? And so we partnered with this recovery community center and to see how peers could potentially use this with their clients. So these are peer support specialists who would be using the results. Okay, so this was primarily led by a colleague, Dr. Martha Tilson. There were several phases. We got feedback. And here's what we came up with. So the graphic designer is actually a person who injects drugs and just incredibly talented and created these templates for us. And so as we identify new adulterants in the supply, we're able to put that kind of on the template, send it out to our community partners. They can revise them, add their own resources as needed. And you can see here they posted on Facebook, and it's gotten a lot of, it has a really big reach and also draws people into their own programs as well. Let's see. Okay, so then since July, we've analyzed over 1,500 syringes. We send out monthly site reports. We also do kind of a newsletter that covers all of the results that we've found over that last month. We do webinars. We just really try to get the information out into the community as much as possible, and always centered on partnering with our local agencies to tailor the program to their needs and wants. So that's it. You can connect with us here, and if you want to sign up for our newsletter, that's QR code. Thank you.